Lieutenant Mark Elliott here, and we're making this video today basically to discuss an upgrade in some equipment. Typically on all our rescue trucks right now we have a portacath needle, basically a Huber needle to access infuser ports. So we're in the process right now of upgrading our procedural guideline. The reason we're making this is because we're a little inundated on the equipment we're using. So the new equipment, and this will come in a case, is the SureCan Safety 2 power injectable needle. Basically just a Huber needle, power injectable. Let me explain that real quick. Power injectable, all that means is that these needles, when placed into a power injectable port, infuser ports, the ports that patients have, sometimes for pain management, sometimes for cancer type patients, things like that, this will be just in the case of having to access their port. These power injectable needles, they allow for high flow, high speed contrast dyes to enter through the power injectable port through the power injectable needle. Same thing, like I said, that's a little explanation on what a power port is. That's what most ports are nowadays, so that's why we're upgrading to the new equipment. All right, now for the procedure part of this, actually placing the needle into the port. We have a, just for demonstration purposes, we have a mannequin style port right here to simulate the actual port on the patient. This could be on the right side. Typically they're on the right side of the chest or the left side of the chest. All your equipment, we've got some sterile gloves, we got the betadine, iodine preps that you're gonna clean the site. You've got our needle, you've got your VenaGuard, you've got your cap, flush, and I just got a little thing that I can put all the equipment in. So first things you want to do is you're just going to grab your gloves, like we always do. Every time you're in the back of the rescue, you're always going to have your gloves on anyways. Safety goggles will simulate that. So first things first, you're going to want to open all your equipment. They call this a sterile procedure, but it's technically aseptic. You're trying to prevent infection to the port site. Hence cleaning, using actual clean gloves, open your VenaGuard up so that you have everything ready. Your cap for your flush. All right. And last but not least, the needle. Now we have clean gloves, so we're touching this, no big deal. Like I said, it's an aseptic technique. So first things first, if you look at the needle, it's got a clamp on it and it's got a cap. We're gonna remove the cap. We're gonna replace the cap with our microclave or our lock. Needleless connector is what it will show in the procedural guideline. All right, and very important, what you want to do is you want to prime the line. Whatever you're putting into the patient, can't have any air. So just prime your line. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to palpate the site. You've got your clean gloves on. They're not sterile, but you're going to palpate the patient's site. When you're doing that, just make sure, check for redness, any kind of signs of infection. You're not going to want to use the port if this is a port that's been placed a long time ago. You might see that in some patients. They're going to come to you and they're going to say, listen, I have terrible venous access, use my port. They're going to be persistent on using the port. Don't just use it prophylactically. If they do need to be treated with a medication, you can use the port. Okay, so I'm palpating the port. I see where the port is, non-dominant hand. Next step, you're going to want to put on your sterile gloves, right? Like I said, they call it sterile procedure, but technically this is to prevent infection. Just put it over your clean gloves. Like I said, now you're technically sterile to prevent infection, but technically an aseptic technique. So next, grab out your prep. All right. You're just going to clean the site. inner circle to outward. Dispose of that. So now you've got your prime needle, wings down. You can clamp this off. Non-dominant hand. Like I said, this could be the right side or the left side of the chest. Have the patient turn their head away from you just to prevent infection. Needle cap off. And you come right down on the center of the... So typically, you're right in the center of the port. You're going to flush, and we'll simulate this. We'll flush. You pull back to check for blood, and then you inject back in and clamp. Remove your flush, just like any other IV. Place your vena guard. Watch your loop. Like I said before, if you have any problems with the vena guard sticking, let's say your patient's diaphoretic, that happens a lot of times in the back of the rescue truck, all you can do simply is take your transparent tape off your tape roll, tape it down, try to get it over the wings to the patient. Of course, like I said before, this is rubber, so it's simulating it. It's not really sticking, but you can just come across the whole thing, essentially making a square. And that's basically your procedure. So you'll just leave this in place and transport the patient. If you need to use the port, you can flush it, clamp it back up whenever it's not in use, or medicate the patient as needed.